Okay, well, thanks again for taking the time for me to talk to you today. Like I said, my name is Dan Fleming, and I'll be talking about NeuroBuddy. So, just to paint a little bit of background for this problem, 9 million Americans currently suffer from an ADHD diagnosis. Um, and this is a number that is growing quite steadily. So, in the last 15 or so years on record, ADHD diagnoses have actually increased about 38%. So, owing to this, Adderall, Ritalin, and some other drugs such as modafinil have become extremely common. And no doubt you have at least a familiarity with these. You know, somebody who takes them. They're becoming very common, and they're called smart drugs. Um, People are using them for productivity, focus, things like that. And what's more, not only are they being used in a prescription context, but they're very highly used off-label as well. Notably, though, ADHD medications have very common side effects. The top three side effects that have been reported for Adderall, Ritalin, and modafinil are appetite loss, insomnia, and anxiety. And these are relatively common in our customer discovery interview process so far. Um, at least a third of people who regularly use ADHD medications have reported some type of adverse side effect. And these drugs are habit forming as well, and that is another concern that people have in regards to these. So really, there is a developing market demand for solutions for ADHD and focus and attention issues that do not have many of these harsh side effects. So really that brings me into talking about NeuroBuddy. So what is NeuroBuddy? It is a supplement that is sourced with natural ingredients directly from the food supply that are actually clinically researched to boost focus, attention, memory, and creativity. Many of these ingredients are what are called nootropics, and really that's just a term for anything that increases your cognitive ability. So going into a little bit more of the details behind the product, just so you have some context as to the research that has been done on these ingredients. There's 13 total ingredients in the formula. I'll talk about two of them here briefly. DMAE, which is an amino acid derivative, was actually compared directly to Ritalin in one study and was shown to be as effective at improving focus and attention, but also had much less negative side effects. Bacopa monnieri is an herb, another one of the ingredients, which actually outperformed modafinil in one meta-analysis. So they looked at a bunch of studies over a long time span, and it showed more consistent results than modafinil. And modafinil is another popularly prescribed drug for focus, attention, as well as some other things. Now, you may have seen some similar products on the market that are branded as focus boosters or memory solutions. And looking at the competitive landscape, there are other natural solutions that are out there as well as the pharmaceutical drugs. However, there are a few problems that really occur with most of the natural solutions out there. Firstly, many of the companies use what are called proprietary blends. And really what a proprietary blend is it's kind of a trade secret where you don't really know exactly what the formulation you're getting is. You don't know exactly what the dosages are. You just know that certain ingredients are inside. So when it comes to the consumer, sometimes this can be an issue of trust. Consumer doesn't know if they're actually getting what they pay for. As well as that, many companies also use ineffective forms of ingredients. This could either be to cut costs or just out of sheer lack of knowledge of the clinical literature and which forms of ingredients are actually effective and which ones aren't. So as far as NeuroBuddy's business model, it'll be an online e-commerce store, direct sales of supplements to consumers, and we'll really drive for a subscription-based model so that we can retain as many customers as possible, increase their lifetime value. We'll primarily be pursuing paid growth through online advertisements on Google, Google AdWords, social media advertisements, things like that. But also have an organic growth component through content creation, social media, growing our audience that way. Just so you know a little bit about me, like I said, my name is Dan Fleming. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Iowa with degrees in chemical engineering and biochemistry. And I like to say that I'm a lifelong struggler with focus and attention. This is a particular issue which has been a pain point for me for my entire life. And it was not until relatively recently when I found out about these natural ingredients and these nootropics that they've helped me tremendously. And I feel that if I can increase the exposure, not many people know about them, it can help a lot of people. So going back into a little bit more of the business model, because we would be an online business, our key metrics will really be centered a lot around the performance of our advertisements and how those affect our sales and how those affect our subscriptions. So tracking our ad metrics, optimizing our website, as well as developing a marketing and a branding strategy, which we are working on, and we are really honing in on what our key segment is, which we believe will be younger people, people that struggle with ADHD across the board. Going into a little bit of the financial projections, the market for ADHD medications is pretty huge. The total market in the US alone was about $9 billion in 2016. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a number that is projected to continue growing as ADHD diagnoses see a steady rise, as do the off-label use of many of these pharmaceuticals. Looking at our serviceable available market, as mentioned in customer discovery interviews, a certain proportion of people have adverse side effects to these medications. And so looking at that, $2.25 billion is an estimate for what would be the serviceable obtainable market for, serviceable available market for those who have issues with many of the medications and are looking for an alternative. And so the obtainable market, we believe, given the current models for the costs and revenue structures of the business, within a year courses into really refining the formula, getting more feedback on the particular formulation, and really refining our marketing and branding strategy. What we need are more customer discovery interviews. I'm sure that's the case with everybody, just to really validate our hypotheses around who is struggling and who would be the ideal candidate for an alternative. So really that's all I have. I have my contact information up here, and I welcome any questions that anybody might have.
Any questions?
Great job, Dan. As a 45-year-old with undiagnosed ADHD, I have worked with a functional medicine doctor on just kind of like, I don't want to be tested for it. I'm not going to take any medication for it. At this point in my life, I've managed to do very well. So I think that, again, so like I said to Michael, don't forget about the older population that, doesn't want to take these sorts of things. But partnering, you may want to consider partnering with those functional medicine doctors that really understand the power in supplements opposed to prescriptions. And then there are a couple of, I know that I order all of my supplements through FullScript. So looking into different supplement pharmacies that functional medicine doctors do use. So just to kind of give you some insight there.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, kind of going off of Aaron's comment there. Um, when you start getting into stuff like this, you usually want to have authority figures of some form.
Hmm.
And I know you have a background in biochemistry. What does your team look like right now?
Either the ADHD and those medications, but also people in the natural solution space is something that I'm really looking to do. So I totally agree. Having a little bit more credibility with those authority figures would be immensely helpful. So that's definitely something I'm looking to put in place.
Other questions?
I have a question. Hey there, Dan. This is David.
David?
Great job today. Could you talk a little bit about what you are forecasting for your revenue? I know it's still pretty early, but what are you thinking at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. The cost structure of the company, in part, it really depends on the marketing and the branding and how those ad metrics are
Well,
going to be performing and how they can be
I
optimized.
was I wasn't yeah, so not the cost structure, but the revenue. Talk to us about how you're gonna, what do you anticipate to be like your sales or other income from your business?
Yeah, definitely. So within the first few months, it'll be really lean. The first initial investment will be about $2,600 for like a minimum order quantity, and with that bulk order, we would expect about a selling at the current price that I'm thinking, which is around $50 or $60 per bottle. That would give us about a 67% gross margin. So from there we can scale. So I think in the first 6 months we can. I'm sorry, I had it written down. I don't have the exact number in front of me. Within the first 6 months, we should be able to get from zero to at least ten to $20,000 in revenue, and then scale up from there. Um, Reinvesting all of the revenue back into larger and larger order quantities, which would reduce the cost of goods sold per unit, and also reinvesting that back into the marketing, advertising budget, and hopefully into product development as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
And this is Paul Heath. I was just wondering, are there any FDA issues with this, and is liability insurance for the company available?
Yeah, great question. So as far as the FDA goes, supplements and vitamins are regulated a little bit differently under the FDA than prescription drugs are. So they're regulated as food additives. So what the process is the ingredient that you want to include in your formula has to be what's on the GRAS list, GRAS. So that stands for generally registered as safe. So you have to have studies backing the safety of each of your ingredients for the FDA to essentially allow you to put those into your formulas. And all of these ingredients are on the GRAS list. However, it is always a good idea to have insurance for, especially for supplement businesses, is because there could always be some adverse reaction with some person in particular. You can't control for every single negative outcome. And so that's definitely something that we've put in place for potential consumers. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool.
So I think I've heard a number of similar products, mushrooms, whatever, on like Rogan podcast and like anything in that world. How are you going to acquire your customers, and what has your research said is the cost of acquiring a new customer?
Yeah. So as far as acquiring new customers goes, really, we do have a disadvantage because we don't have such big players that are partners, such as like Joe Rogan and people like that. But I do think that building credibility, like Jay said, by partnering with people in the natural medicine space, people that are authority figures, is going to be one strategy that we have in particular, as well as just building a platform and building an audience online. So I think similar to what Joe Rogan does, building an audience and building a community of people that struggle with ADHD and really don't have awareness of the alternatives. I think that Joe Rogan and his audience, they're a little bit more honed in on the fitness space and things like that. They're not really as focused on the ADHD market. And I do think there's a lot of room to grow. So content creation, online advertisements, those are really going to be our strategies for acquiring new customers. As far as the cost of acquiring new customers, we're shooting for, with our ad metrics, we're really shooting for about a 20% ad spend per customer acquisition, in terms of like cost of ad spend proportional to the revenue. So that's the metric I'm aiming for. As far as like the details, we still really have to flesh those out to see if we can get to that target number. Does that answer your question?
I believe so. I don't know how much marketing costs. I think $10. That would be about $10 a client, right?
Correct. Yep.
That seems ambitious.
Yeah. So like I said, that'd be the ideal. Getting to that number is going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of refining our marketing. So that won't be a number we achieve in the beginning. Hopefully we can get closer and closer to that number as time goes on.
Hey, Dan, I have another question for you. So I know that you're still early in your product testing with people and whatnot. Do you have a sense yet of, you mentioned those 3 side effects that you were kind of going after to solve for people. Do you have a sense yet of which of those 3 is most promising for you to solve for most people?
Yeah, good question. I think probably either the anxiety / jitters or the insomnia. I know that insomnia is a big one because Adderall is a central nervous system stimulant. It is very common that people are up all night when they're taking it. So the formulation that I have is a non-stimulant formula. Really, it just works by increasing the brain's capacity for focusing naturally, as opposed to really ramping up your body into that heightened sympathetic state. So that's my initial gut assumption, but we do have to verify that more, obviously, through more customer discovery and really getting some more data on that.
Would you be interested in talking to anyone through this community about either participating as an interview candidate or as a study candidate? I'm not sure how that works. Okay. So if anyone's interested, please send a note to Dan, connect with Dan about this so he can validate what he's got here.
Dan, this is Paul again. I got a question. Is your formulation a trade secret, or do you have to divulge your formulation on the bottle? How does that work? Can you patent it or?
Right. So with supplements, you kind of have 2 options. You can either list all of the ingredients and list all the dosages, or you can use a proprietary blend. And with a proprietary blend, it then becomes a trade secret, where you can get a copyright on your particular formulation, and then you can go on to patent that if you choose to. With patenting, there is the issue which comes into play where once you patent a formula, you can't change it. And so patenting is not a process you would want to do unless you are 100% sure that you've landed on the right formula with all the right dosages of each ingredient. As far as proprietary blends go, that's still something I'm torn on, because there are some supplement companies, and there's a lot of communities out there which have a distaste for dishonest vitamin and supplements companies. And so proprietary blends are something that they see as something a company is doing to boost their margins and really give you the cheapest product possible, because they don't have to tell you what the dose of each ingredient you're getting is. Although the problem with showing each dose transparently is that you do divulge your entire formula out there for other people to look at, other people to copy. So that's something I haven't really figured out yet. I'm still working on what my decision is going to be in regards to that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other
Do you have a usable product now?
I have a sample that is usable, yes, but in terms of actually buying, saleable bottles, we have yet to get our first bulk order.
Any other questions?
Can you make it in a gummy? Because those are always so fun to take. I'm just kidding.
Down the road, that's going to be one of the projects, or a drinkable form.
Nice. We got time for maybe one more question before I ask our final question.
So how did you go from, I guess, discovering this to let's sell it? Like, if it's not tested yet, or I know the ingredients are, but like if your recipe is still kind of up in the air and you're already trying to sell it, like, how did that happen? And how long have you been in this space? And so if I'm a customer, like, why am I getting this from you, right? Like, what's your credibility here in the field? I know the science is there, but like, it sounds like you're trying to connect with your customers at like a more personal level with social media and the content. So how do you sell you to the customer, or are you going to get a spokesperson or what?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as far as like my personal involvement with like nootropics, it's really been something I've been working on for over a year now. When I started finding out about them, when I started really looking for things that would help my focus in particular. So to be honest, a lot of it is it's looking at the research, but it's just coupled with my personal experience and what has been working really well for me. So in that sense, it is a difficult bridge to cross, getting from what works for one person very well to what is going to work for, most people very well, right? So that is something that I've tried to really work on by looking at the studies and looking at what are the optimal dosages that are given in the literature, but it has been informed primarily just by my own experience and what has been working for me. So that is going to be a challenge of getting more customer feedback and getting more data from the market. So I do think that is going to be one of our strategies, is getting that customer feedback in place, and then once we start having some traction there, really being able to expand and so people can see that it's not just like one person that is benefiting from it, that this is actually something that's helping other people. Does that make sense? Awesome.
Cool. It's that time for our traditional final question. What can we as the community do to help you?
Yeah, so really right now I have a lot of assumptions and a lot of them are still up in the air. And so getting more data from customer discovery interviews would be super, super helpful. So Jay, I know you emailed me last week. And if anybody else knows people that struggle with focus issues, that have, ADHD or undiagnosed ADHD or anything like that, I would love to talk to you about it, as well as any other people that are involved in either the ADHD medications side of things, like psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, but also, if anybody knows people like functional practitioners in the natural medicine space, that would be super helpful too. So looking to interview people all across the board.
Very cool. And everyone take a screenshot of the email addresses there, or
I can send it in the chat as well if you'd like.
That would work too. That'd be perfect. All right. Thank you very much.